Hi, my name is Julie Wilson, and this is my video reflection for Chapter 2. So the first question is, what are the 5 key takeaways? So the first one that stood out to me was on page 37, which is the National Research Act of 1974, and it charged the Commission with developing an ethical code and guidelines for researchers. The second thing is on page 42, which is the informed consent. That ensures that research participants enter the research at their own free will and they understand the study. They're made aware of any possible dangers, and sometimes written permission is necessary. There's always ongoing dialogue between the teacher and the participants just to make sure that everyone still feels comfortable participating in the study. The third thing was on page 42 as well, which talks about freedom from harm, in which students must not be exposed to risks, and it protects students from embarrassment or ridicule. And then page 43 talks more about the freedom of harm. There's anonymity, which means that the researcher doesn't know the identity of the participants, and then there's also confidentiality, where the researcher knows who the participants are, but they don't release personally identifiable information. So they might just say student A, or they might just make up a random name, or use a random word. So the fourth thing is parental permission, and that's found on page 45. There's an example of a parental consent form, at least, on page 45. So it's required if students are underage, and if data is being used to identify students. It's not required if school personnel have legitimate educational interest and records are anonymous. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the request must also specify what kind of data may be disclosed, what the purposes are for, and then to whom is the data going to be presented to. And then the fifth and last thing was personal ethical perspective, and that's on page 46. So some research data can challenge personal ethics. You need to make sure that you clarify your perspective before you begin your research, and make sure that in order to ensure accuracy, you leave out any bias in your data collection, analysis, and interpretation. All right, the next question is, how did you personally connect with the material? So I now understand the importance of eliminating any bias and other unethical issues before completing the study, and also make sure that you have your study reviewed by the making sure that you have your study reviewed by the IRB, the Institutional Review Board, can help ensure that you have eliminated any unethical issues. What did you learn by watching the videos? So in video number 1, a student teacher wrote a cover letter to the parents and explained the action research process and told the students as well, just to make sure that they all felt comfortable. Video 2, the student teacher didn't use a consent form because she was using data from regular tests that were given in class, and she didn't use their names, so she didn't feel that it was necessary, but that was unethical. Video 3, the student teacher didn't feel it was necessary, and it was unethical to share with her principal that she was doing an action research study, or she also didn't feel like it was necessary to have to share to have to share the findings with her principal as well. And then the last video, number 4, the student teacher didn't reveal what her study was about to her students, and she didn't feel the need for consent forms based on the fact that the students' names would remain anonymous. She just told them briefly that she was doing a research study for a graduate class, which was on technology. And then the last question is, there anything that was confusing to you? Nothing in this chapter really seemed confusing to me. I felt like a lot of it was common sense. And that's it. Thanks for watching.